Black History Month, it's an opportunity to celebrate and recognize the Black community and the unrecognized accomplishments that were made in society. You know, it's also an opportunity for education for all people, not just Black people.
For me, it's more of a time of reflection, just because I use it as an opportunity to learn. But it is also a time of celebration because of the fact that I can now, because of the people that I'm learning about, I'm able to learn about things whenever I want, however I want. I can walk into a library if I want to and read a book. And although that seems like something very small, a lot of people that came before me, they weren't able to do that. And they really, they had the same desire to learn as I do. They just didn't have the freedom to go in and participate. I do take advantage of that chance to reflect about Black history and figures in Black history and events, just because it's something that I feel is important to keep going forward, is to learn about where you come from.
I think it's definitely a time of reflection, of course, because there were just so many great historical figures, that, put their trademark on what Black history means and the whole movement. And of course, we never want to forget those forefathers and those individuals who really set the tone for Black history and for Black Americans. So I think it's a time of reflection and legacy to be able to uphold those types of, rituals, those types of values, things like that. I also think it's a time of celebration, just to be joyful that there's been progress made. Thank God we're not where we were. We're still working to get where we want to be, but we're not where we were. And that's not just Blacks, that's everybody being included. And I like to teach my students that Black history is not just my history, it's world history, because it takes all of us to speak up and advocate.
I feel very accepted in the city of Kyle. I was elected as the president of our HOA. I served on the planning and zoning. I served on the board of adjustments, served on council. I also was on the board of directors for the Kyle Chamber. So I felt very accepted and embraced.
At first it was challenging for me to live out here as a resident. Again, I've been here 8 years and it was challenging, and I remember I would tell my family, there's not enough of us out here. There's not enough diversity. There's not enough culture. There's not enough color. And you would definitely feel isolated and disconnected at times. But now I see a lot more Blacks are moving into the area, and so that's definitely changing the face of Kyle. It's definitely making it a more inclusive community and inclusive environment, which I think is amazing. I can appreciate it. It's bringing the Black businesses into town. It's bringing, the classrooms are looking more balanced and more diverse. Just the community in general. It's bringing more events and causes for events. And so I would just say that it's fast, it's growing, it's becoming what it should be, which is really well-rounded, a well-rounded place to live.
It is a very welcoming community, and I think the small town lifestyle of Kyle, mixed with it being in such a close proximity to Austin, I think this town specifically is a very unique mix because there's not a big university here, so it's not a completely youthful town, but there are a lot of young people here and mixed in with a lot of older people. And I think that's a good recipe for a balanced community, because you get to see a good balance of personality types here. And it feels like a real place. Kyle feels like a real place that you can call home.
Kyle keeps growing. People don't really remember this, but when FM 1626 actually ended before it even got into the city limits of Kyle, the access roads on I-35 were actually two-way on both sides. The only restaurant we had was the Dairy Queen. It's changed quite a bit. When we got HEB and began to build roads, with that came growth, and with the growth came a great amount of diversity.
I think as a community, Kyle will continue to grow naturally just because of the proximity of where we are. In order to grow, I just think that Kyle should continue to lean into its diversity, not only just between age, but also ethnicity, race, and really just everything diverse, because more different walks of life are represented within a community. That community is going to grow naturally.
I had the opportunity when I worked with Breakthrough Austin, which is a nonprofit organization that strives to get first-generation graduates into college. When I had the chance to work with them this past summer, I was a facilitator for something called an affinity group. And so within the affinity groups, we have those tough cultural type conversations. You know, we have the what it's like to have white privilege type conversations and what it's like to be a Black woman in Kyle, Texas conversations, you know. And so I think having these type of peace and progress conversations, that platform is amazing. It's a brilliant idea because it's something that gives someone the opportunity to speak up who may not necessarily speak up. It gives them an outlet.
That's how you learn, is to ask the question. And that's been the hesitancy in moving forward, is because people are afraid of hurting feelings. And we know, people know when you ask questions, you're not trying to hurt people's feelings, you're trying to educate yourself and understand. And you should have that right. And so if we can get past that, well, I don't know if I should ask, or they're not going to accept that from me, or I'm this color and I can't say that. No, you are a human being and you should be able to ask the questions to learn from another person. I'd like people to know, especially the young adults and the generation that's coming behind us, that if, and we've all heard this, if you can see it, you can be it. Everyone needs to be able to see someone that they can relate to. Kyle elected the first Black person to the city council in 1997, a woman named Maddie Broadfoot. And we elected the first Black mayor in 1998, Mayor James Atkins, who was re-elected twice without any opponents.
It's not an event, but it is a historical, what's called a historical marker here. But it's the Kyle Pioneer Family Cemetery. That was actually a slave cemetery. And I just thought it was interesting because history is always shown to us in black and white, and it's made to look old and foreign to us. But there's a lot of history that's always right in our back door, because at one point history was just the current society. And so if you just take a look in your backyard, there's history right there. And that's the, like, even though it's kind of a, you know, it is kind of a dark part of history, it's nice to see that it's recognized as, you know, what it is. And it's cool that it was chosen to be recognized by the city as that.
How can Kyle become a more inclusive community? Kyle is already a diverse community in its demographics. Our city council is representative of this. 5 out of 7 are minorities, with 3 women. It could be more inclusive of everyone by encouraging others to just take a leadership in the businesses, and also the selection of members, you know, to serve on the city committees.
Doing things like this, you know, reaching out to minorities and inviting their voice, reaching out and letting the minorities know that they are a valuable part of the community. You know, creating programs and opportunities and events, whereas so many different types of people can connect and learn from one another, interact with each other.
I think businesses play a big role in inclusivity. Places that have, just speaking for me, Black-owned businesses seem to draw in more diverse crowds naturally. And I think just having a more diverse community of businesses that are owned by different types of people will naturally bring different types of people in and throughout the city. When you come to a new place, you want to see new things that are different. So if a person is coming from a place where they don't see many businesses owned by women or too many businesses owned by African American people, and they see that in another place, they're like, wow, that's a place where I want to at least come back to more often. And then they eventually decide, well, maybe I want to actually plant my home base here.
2020 did have some impact to a lot of people. It was a year that got everybody's attention. There were events across the country that were on a national level. With the Black community, it shook the very core of the Black community nationwide. Also with George Floyd and the media, where it was he and the police officer in the street. No one in my mind could walk away and not realize there's an issue in the Black community. And I think it spoke loud and clear to many, many people, rightfully so. I think this involved everybody, you know, of all races. to chime in and to make a difference.
And I think the things that happened in 2020 themselves aren't necessarily new or even really very different from the things that have happened in earlier years, like in 2016, 2014. I just think that a lot of time was spent paying attention now. I think we had a lot less things to take our mind away from social issues.
I think watching the way that it happened with Floyd was disgraceful, you know, and I think it shook a lot of people up just to see that. And then I think it was a sad truth that people had to finally face. I think it was, and I hate that it had to bring us together like this, you know. Sometimes the worst things that happen are the things that bring us the closest together, and I think that was one of those things. But you're right, this type of stuff didn't just start happening, you know. But sometimes it just takes it to happen one more time before somebody actually cares or wakes up and wants to do something about it, and perhaps that was that one time.
I know for a fact in my circle, my friends that aren't black had no clue how bad things actually could be and have been for black people. I think a lot of times the painting history in black and white really does work, and it makes people believe that a lot of things that happened when our grandparents were middle-aged people, it makes them seem like they happened so long ago. But most of the things that we read about in history books happened in the 60s. And most of the things that people fought for and fought against happened late 60s, early 70s. And my dad was born in 1970. My grandma was alive when it was completely legal, completely normal to not hire a person just because they were black. And it was accepted throughout the entire country. Outside the black community, these past couple of years have really shown, hey, these are real issues. These are current issues. It's not just in history books. This happens across the country daily. Things that affect black people are not just in the past. It's current. And on top of that, I also think that it made people understand that those things are presented in different ways. It's not always just brute force racism. A lot of it is economic, and a lot of it is very systemic, and it's not always happening to every single black person. It's a system, and it's made to happen in a way where you can't pinpoint where it comes from. And so you have to be really in tune with what's happening in order to really be on the right side of history. You have to pay attention to it. And so if anything, from the last 2 years, it's taught people to really dig deep into these things rather than just believe the first thing you're told.
I think it's created opportunities for blacks to want to speak up. And I think we always want to speak up. I think it's a feeling of not having the platform or the opportunity to do so. And so again, I see Kyle creating those opportunities. I see school districts creating those opportunities. The fact that I get to serve as a diversity advisory committee representative on my campus is amazing, because I get to go and I get to be that voice. I get to be that representation. I get to talk about what it's like to be in the skin that I'm in and to be a black woman working in Hayes-C ISD, and you don't see many of us, or males at that factor as well, and also not in leadership roles. And so you see a lack of blacks in leadership.
What advice would I give young people today? Live life with a purpose, on purpose. I'd say recognize your value when you walk into a space, and don't ever delegate your strength or your power.
Be true to yourself. Be true to yourself. It is so easy to lose yourself in so much that's happening around you. It's true to lose yourself when you don't have people teaching you to be proud of yourself. You don't have people teaching you in the school books what your heritage is and why it matters and why it's important. And so ask those questions at home with your families. Have those meaningful conversations. Don't rid yourself of your heritage. Don't rid yourself of where you come from. Be proud, and use that as a platform to keep going. And so that's what I would say to the young people.